It's so easy to have so much. Sometimes you have to strip back to the bare necessities to fall back in love with something. Dan approached me and was curious if we would be interested in trying out a couple of the different versions of four-wheel campers that we do not have.
When Mac and Owen proposed this trip, we didn't even think about it. Just, yes, of course we're in. Like, where do we sign?
Owen and I are very strategic people, and we're always kind of like, well, if we were doing this, like this would be the setup that we have, or if that was ours, this is what we would do with it. I think it's just a fun mental exercise. As somebody who's owned so many different vehicles living on the road, it's always cool to play out those scenarios, but to have the opportunity to actually take them for a test drive was a very exciting proposition for us.
So we started in Sacramento at Four Wheel Campers headquarters, where we ditched our vehicles and got in the new trucks and campers. We left the city and climbed up and over the Sierra and down into the desert, where the adventure would really begin. Death Valley is the largest and one of the most rugged tracts of wilderness in the lower 48, and the vast majority of it isn't accessible with a two-wheel drive vehicle, which means there's this whole side of the park that nobody ever sees. Most of the time it feels like life is sort of this complicated series of equations used to make risk-reward assessments. And the funny thing is, everyone's tolerances are different and they're changing all the time. The only way to know when something is too risky is to push it over the edge. But most of the time, that's also where all the best stuff is, you know, right there on the edge. So I feel like to get the most out of life, you kind of have to live in this precarious balance, teetering on the edge of success and failure. But, you know, that's kind of the beauty of it, I guess.
When you think back on your time on the road, you don't think about all the stuff you were carrying. You think about, yeah, the people that you were with and the things that you saw and the experiences that you had and the horrific windstorms that nearly blew you off a cliff. And so I think that for us, when we think back on our travels, like I said, we didn't come out here to be comfortable, and it's amazing what can happen if you're okay with being a little uncomfortable.
I think all four of us have slightly higher tolerances for risk than most people, which is how we ended up here in the first place. But we totally feed off each other. The confidence to push farther definitely grows with numbers. You know, the more people are there, the more likely you are to take risks. But also, we have all this collective experience to help us check each other if someone's pushing it a little too far. Once you get going down some of these sketchy two-tracks, which essentially evolved out of old mule trails that the miners in the 1800s used to use, you can get lost for days, weeks probably. And for us, I guess that was kind of the point. We were getting lost by design. think that's the best part about getting to do these trips with our friends, is that in the end, I'm not even sad they're over. I'm just so grateful that they happened in the first place.
All of the profound experiences that you have typically are happening when you've stepped out into the unknown.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah.
We got our start on the road with the bare necessities. It was a Honda Element, a tent, and a sleeping bag, and that was about it. And I think that when you have too much with you, it takes away the focus of why you're out there in the first place. It's crazy to me that you live so many days in your life and you forget most of them. But since being on the road, I feel like I can remember almost every single day. But it's because life isn't easy out here. You have to work, you have to plan, you have to analyze, but it keeps you so engaged and so focused, and I have a hard time imagining ever returning to a life fully like that anymore, because I don't ever want my life to fall out of focus like that. I just think that days have more meaning out here.